Hello and welcome back to this episode of Cat Catches Up on Commissions. I just went to the store to try and get gloves and they are sold out. There aren't even kitchen gloves because I'm guessing because of the pandemic. So I have one glove left, and then on my other hand I have a Ziploc bag, and that might seem a little extreme to you, but I am working with oil paints. And some of them have ingredients that you do not want on your skin, like cadmium and cobalt. And they're very, very bad if you breathe them in. Now, if you just get them on your skin once or twice, you're gonna be fine. But if you plan on painting for 80 years, like I do, and yes, I said 80 years, I'm gonna be a nice old painter. You wanna just limit your contact with them as much as possible so that across time it doesn't build up and harm you. The only way you can really breathe in oil paint is if you've dried a painting and then you are sanding it. So if you do that, take precautions. Otherwise, breathing in, you're okay as far as the paint goes. But I see people painting without gloves and they just get it all over their skin, and it just makes me cringe and terror. It's just not a compounded effect that you want. Okay. If you want to get your hands in it, use acrylic paints. That is a good time. So today I thought that I would talk about some of the best advice I've gotten over the years. There is lots and lots of bad advice out there. And sometimes you get good advice, and I'm going to share with you the nuggets of wisdom I have heard. So the first one, there was I guess you would call them just a horse person? Horseman? I'm not sure. An equine person who said, take the time it takes and it will take less time. They were talking about training horses. I used to work in a lot of barns, mucking stalls and things like that. But I really like that saying because it's true that if you just slow down and focus and you do things intentionally the first time, you won't have to go back and fix it, most likely, or there will be less to fix. Which is true in art and a lot of things. Person who said that, Pat Pirelli, that was a long time ago. I can't endorse the person. I don't know much about them. I can't remember if there was a controversy about them, but they said that and it stuck with me. No. The second one is that time improves decisions. So if you are asked to make a decision and there is no time, you have to make a snap decision, or you don't have time to think about it or discuss it, chances are that's because the person asking you to make the decision knows that you will likely say no or come back with a counteroffer. And they're trying to get ahead of you by making you commit before you can think about what you're committing to. And this isn't always true. Sometimes great opportunities happen quickly, but I would say for me so far, the times I have said no because I was being pressured into a fast decision, it has paid off, and I have avoided either a scam or someone who was very unprepared to fulfill their end of the bargain. And that was some wisdom I got from my father, that usually time will improve decisions and you'll feel better about it and more confident about it, as opposed to regretting it or questioning it more as time goes on. And then one that I like to say a lot myself is good enough is good enough. I would not claim to be a perfectionist or close to one, but when I'm making something, I have an idea in mind, and if I'm making a painting or an audio, I like to feel a certain feeling when I'm reviewing it, and if I don't feel that feeling, I'll keep going back because I want to get as close to that as possible. It's like when you're trying to remember the melody of a song and you just can't quite remember it and it's driving you crazy. That's how it feels. I feel like I get closer and closer. Can't quite get it. But sometimes a project ends and it may not be exactly what you wanted it to be, but it'll be time to move on. And it helps to be able to realize that sometimes you just reach the end of a project and then it's good enough, and that is good enough. And sometimes I will revisit old projects when I've gained new skills, and that's always satisfying, because sometimes where you're at, you just don't have the skills to make your vision come true, and you can always come back later. But it can be really freeing to let something go if it's just not the right time for it. Alright, so I've got the proportions in. I'm going to put in some more shadows. So this subject is red. It's a very warm, rich red. And the opposite of that on the color wheel is green. But green is kind of a unique color where it's very easy to overdo it. Very easy. And I have been told if you paint a green book cover, it will not sell. Red is the best selling color, and green is the worst. And do you guys know why hospital scrubs are green on the color spectrum? Like I said, green and red are opposite. So when people are doing surgery and they're seeing a lot of red, it fatigues your eyes and it can make it hard to focus and your eyes can get blurry. And if you can look at something green, it will rest your eyes for a minute. So while they're doing surgery, they can constantly be looking up at the green walls and the green scrubs, and it will help reset their eyes. I always thought that was really interesting. And yay science, and yay for looking out for your rods and cones. So even though the subject is red and the opposite is green, I don't want to use green. So I am going to use blue, which is close. So I love manganese blue is my favorite, but cerulean blue is more of a gray blue. And I'm going to use that just because this is an underlayer that I don't necessarily want showing through. I don't want it to show through as much. And any color you have, if you want to dull it down, you just add the opposite. Opposite of blue is orange. So I'm going to add some orange in so that it's a little more gray looking. Because if all your colors are saturated and pure, they're competing against each other and they're all going to kind of look the same. But if you have some that are kind of muddy and some that are very vibrant, the vibrant ones are going to stand out way more. And it's going to be more interesting to look at. And then this is more about art advice. I'm sure you could apply this elsewhere. But one of my professors talked about how the affluent are not affected the same way everyone else is. So even if the economy slowed down or people aren't shopping as much, that doesn't necessarily apply to the affluent. So art continues to sell even when other stuff doesn't. And art is just very interesting how it's valued, because it's one of the first things in a war. You try to destroy the art of the country you're attacking. Because it's very important to culture, history, identity. And there's some art that is lost forever due to war. And as far as my professor was talking about how when you're pricing your art, because I know a lot of artists go through this, you struggle with pricing it high enough because you just aren't sure like what's fair, what people are willing to pay. But you can't always afford your own art, and that is something to realize too. That a lot of times your audience is just in a completely different place financially, and they are still willing to pay and value your art. And you'll find your audience. They're out there. Once you find them, you're good to go. Just gotta find your group. And then another piece of advice that I've leaned heavily on is no is sometimes a timing thing. Now, I'm not talking about people. If a person tells you no, leave them the hell alone. I'm talking about business opportunities. It's easy to get discouraged. You apply to shows, you apply to galleries, you get rejected a lot. And same with writers, same with, well, any kind of creative venture, you're going to get told no. But sometimes it's a timing thing, and you just got to keep asking. And this year, actually, there's a show I've been trying to get into for 6 years, and I finally got in this year, and then the show was canceled due to the pandemic, but it's alright. I'm still happy I got in. Crossing my fingers for next year. But sometimes it can take 6 years. You just gotta keep asking, keep improving, and be ready when the timing is right. Alright, so for the background, this subject I only got one photo of. I don't have their Instagram. I can see a wall behind them is kind of a pink color, but I'm gonna go with a cool color because this is a red subject. And blue is kind of a default. Can't really go wrong with blue. Goes with a lot of things. It's calming. So I'm just gonna go all out with a blue background. We'll do the cerulean so it's not overwhelming. Another thing that I like, another quote, and I don't know who said it, so comment if you do, but people will forget what you did, and people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's really true. I can think of people I haven't seen for 10, 15 years and just think of, oh, I remember how I felt when I was around them. Some people great, some people not great. It also kind of plays into the actions speak louder than words. I believe a lot of people who make empty promises are well-meaning. They do want to be that person. They just don't have the maturity to follow through. So it's really good before you believe somebody. Listen to what they say and then watch what they do and see how it lines up. Because being well-meaning doesn't mean anything. Okay, I'm going to stand back. I like that blue. So my favorite painting color is Payne's Gray with a Y, like Max Payne. It is the deepest, darkest navy blue. So it looks black until you spread it out or add anything to it. It's much more interesting than black. And especially in watercolor. It is just, in my opinion, the most beautiful color. You can do so much with it. And it goes with everything. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on this one. What I usually do is take my leftover colors, put it on an empty canvas, and use those for backgrounds later. So the last piece of advice that I will leave you with, and I don't know where any of this is attributed to. Sorry, I heard this one on a podcast on TikTok, so it was like 30 seconds of a podcast. And the speaker said, love is common and it's everywhere. And you can think about how many people have you loved that did not love you back or just were no good. So love is common, but respect and trust are rare. So instead of looking for love, look for someone who you can trust each other and who respects you. And usually you'll find love there too. but I thought that was just a really great way to look at it. I am so unkind to my brushes. That sound you're hearing is me going back and forth, back and forth. And the bristles get bent and break off. They have very vigorous, short lives. All right. This layer is done. Let me know what your favorite piece of advice you've gotten is. I would love some good advice.